Greetings everybody. I want to ask a quick question. How many of you have been to prison? Raise your hand. Well, today I'm going to talk about my prison story. I don't really discuss it that much because unfortunately people like to define you by small moments in your life. But I wanted to share the story with you of my journey through prison. So it was a pretty heavy time on me. I had to go to prison and I had to turn myself in. So I didn't have to, how do you say? I forgot a lot of the terminologies. Actually, I forgot about it intentionally. So I was able to turn myself in from the streets straight to the prison. So I had to book my own flight, right? Leave my own house, say goodbye to my own family, and turn myself in to the prison. In the prison, I had to be there by like 12 o'clock at night. I went and got me a fresh haircut because I was under the mindset that I would have been in solitary confinement kind of situation for the entire time that I was in prison, because I had never been to prison. So I knew nothing about it except what I hear on the streets or what I saw on TV. So I had to turn myself into prison, and I booked me a flight. No commercial planes went to the prison, so I went on what I think was called a propeller plane, which is really crazy. And we arrived at the prison. I hung out a little bit in the town because they like for you to be at the prison. They told me like 6, 7 o'clock, but as long as you're not after 12 o'clock, you're fine. So of course I went at 11:59 because I'm not giving you an extra minute of my time because you're already taking it from me. And we're not going to talk about the crazy kids, but in my mind, you're kidnapping me. So I'll be there at 11:59. So I arrived at the prison and just really went through some really inhumane things. It was just like horrible. I don't even want to tell you that part. And they took me to the holding cell, which I thought, like, I looked up at the sun and I'm thinking like, oh my God, this is going to be my last time seeing the sun until, I'm released. So I went into the prison, I went into this little room, and I just went into that gorilla mindset, right? Like, okay, I'm here, I laid down, I'm going to get me some rest, and then I'll develop me a program that will make sure that I am benefiting spiritually, intellectually, and even with my health. And I was in a room that was just it was half of the room that I'm in right now. It wasn't even that big, actually. It was a really, really small room. I used to know it by heart because I used to walk the room and count the area with my feet. So I laid down. The next morning, the guards came and got me and told me that I wouldn't be staying in that prison. I was going to another prison, which was not a lot of bars, that was a higher prison. So I was going to a lower prison. I didn't know what that was either. So anyway, I arrived with this soft voice that you hear right now, and I arrived into the prison with this soft voice and, fresh haircut, looked nothing like many of the prisoners. I was a little bit, like, okay, here we go on this journey. And I'm watching the guys watch me but I'm a different kind of person, right? I look one way, I speak one way, but I have a different history, right? And I really don't take a lot of trash. So I'm watching them, watching me. And my first experience, it was lunchtime. And so we went to eat food, and I could see the guys watching me. And as I went up to get my plate, I told the servers that I can't eat that because I normally eat halal food. There's no normally to it. That's all I eat is halal food. So I told them, you have to feed me, since you kidnapped me, you have to feed me based upon what I eat at home. So I refused to eat. I just ate every day, maybe apples and fruits and things like that. And I laid in my bed. I didn't have any books. I didn't have any books at the time. So, people let me borrow books, I got to meet people. I had a Muslim bunkie. But the first thing I did was stand my grounds. I don't care where I'm at. I don't care that I'm in your prison. This is the food that I have to eat, right? This is the life that I want. I don't want to become a prisoner. I don't want to look like many of these guys that are walking through this prison looking like zombies. I refuse to look like and carry myself like a zombie the way these prisons condition these people to be. So that was one of my very important things that I wanted to make sure that I took care of, was myself and not to become institutionalized. So I gave one guy my food, and every day I gave them, even the Muslims, they used to eat the food that wasn't allowed. I would just give it to them, or whoever wanted it. They would give me fruit, I would eat the fruit, and they're watching me because they're not used to somebody walking straight off the streets, making demands in the prison, and then being committed and disciplined to what they're asking for. So I didn't know that not eating in a prison could cause trouble. It could cause trouble. So they know, like, this person's not eating. Why is he not eating? Right? I didn't know any of that. I just said, I'm not eating. I don't care how much you guards threatening me to eat because you don't want to be investigated. I'm not eating. So they sent me over one of the chaplains, and I had to prove that I understood what the Quran said about the diet. And then after I did that, what's up, my brother? Then after I did that, they began to serve me halal food. Everybody else's meal was worth $1.50. My meal was worth $17. So that was one of the first things I did was make sure that I had my halal food. Then for the next couple of weeks, maybe 10 days, the inmates are still watching me straight off the street, battling these guards, battling them, battling the system. And which they don't do that much because many of them were scared of the consequences. I didn't really know the consequences, and I didn't care. I told them they could kill me because I have things that I live by and I'm going to stand on. So the next thing was I stayed in my bunk and I just read whatever I could get until my family sent me my books. And with my Michael Jackson voice, people out here thought that when I entered the prison, they thought something bad was going to happen to me. I led that prison within 2 weeks of being inside of it. I was the leader until the day I left that prison. Because I lived off certain morals, certain disciplines, right? And it resonated with the prisoners. They usually see someone coming in talking crazy, but then they see a disciplined man. The non-Muslims used to come to my bunk to ask me how a Muslim should practice. They said, because the other Muslims here don't practice the way that you do. And I told them, it's okay, we're all at different levels. We do the best that we can do. Like I said, again, they made me the leader of that prison in 2 weeks. So I want to get to the point. What I'm leading to is how I use the disciplines in the prison to build my business. Because about time I came home from prison, people had stole everything from me, and I want to get to that. I don't want to, give you the surprises too fast. But anyway, so the next thing, my responsibility was to give the khutbahs, the Islamic sermons, every Friday. At my Friday services, the Christian pastors was there. The scientists was there, because I was in a federal prison, which had a lot of doctors, a lot of professionals. But just because of my discipline, that they're watching me on my bunk, it gravitated them. In 2 weeks, they had been inside for 20 years. And in 2 weeks, they wanted to hear what I had to say. That's how strong your disciplines in life have to be, that they push out just like the sun rays, right? So I began teaching every week, not just to Muslims at our Friday services, but to the non-Muslims as well. And then I established a meditation class in the prison. As a brand new prisoner, people in there, like I said, 20 years, 10 years, right? They have already done that much time. Me, I'm barely a month, and I'm teaching classes. This made the establishment so nervous. They watch me, they threaten my life. Since day one, they told me, Khalil, do you want to go home to see your family? These are threats that they gave me, but I continued who I was until and after I left that prison. You have to have disciplines in your life. So, what I did in prison to help build my businesses is that I basically promised myself that I would make myself a better person than I was before I entered, and that I would not allow this prison to rob from me my time. I was going to get something out of it, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to give more. You're going to hate that you put me in this prison, because I'm going to succeed so much. This will be your biggest regret, forever putting me behind these bars. So I began to write my books. I wrote, how many books in prison? I wrote 3 books in prison. I used to sit and write so much that the prisoners, at 1 o'clock in the morning, I would be writing. They would come to my bunk to tell me how much they appreciated me, to see someone with this much commitment. Inside of this prison, they had neuroscientists, they had mayors, they had big people from the stock market. They were all sit at my bunk, and we would learn and share with one another. But they attracted to me so quickly because of my massive discipline. You have to have discipline. If someone tries to take something away from you in your life, if you establish yourself, your discipline, your goals, no matter the time you wasted with them, you should come out better than you were when you went into whatever situation it is. It could have been a relationship. You don't come out of a relationship worse than you went in. You don't come out of anything worse than you went in. And I promised myself that I would not come out of prison worse than I went in. Right? So that's something you can take from that. So I began to write my books. 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I would get up and learn a new chapter of the Quran. 4:30 in the morning. Because my memory wasn't that good. It wasn't that sharp because I wasn't training it the way that I was supposed to. So I used that opportunity to train my mind. And I began to memorize more and more chapters of the Quran. And I just didn't do the Quran. I did, oh my gosh, I can't even think of his name right now. I did so many scientists. I memorized their works. I used the time to just become a better person, to strengthen my mind, right? Another thing that I did was begin to work out my body. I was about 170 pounds, skinny, sticking bones. So I used to hide in the chapel and do push-ups, right? Because I knew I had to fix my body, right? And see, my wife did this to me. But I had to fix my body at a time, and I still work on it right now. I began to start doing push-ups. So the prisoners or the inmates, they would watch me do push-ups because the chapel had a big picture window. And so they could see me in there doing push-ups, and I only could do 20, and then 30, and then 40, and then 50, and then 100. Once I got to 100 push-ups, I came out with population and began to work out with them. Now I'm at 300, now I'm at 500. You know, the same thing with pull-ups. I couldn't do one pull-up. So I asked inmates to hold my legs, and they would hold my legs, and I would pull myself up. Prison gave me courage. You know, I got the opportunity to be with other men, and men sharpens men. I didn't go there to be broken. I didn't go there to be punished. I went there like Yusuf to elevate myself. I went there like Joseph to come out far better than I was before I went inside. I went inside to go inside of myself. So actually, my prison journey was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Nobody can hold that over my head because it took me to a different level in my life and in my business. So now, when you're doing the pull-ups, at first I couldn't do any pull-ups, and the winter came. The winter came, and we were in the mountains, so it was -5, -7 in the mountains, up by the clouds. And I'm like, nobody's going to come outside and work out anymore, so I had to go out in -degree weather and do pull-ups. And I went out. I would put on, some thermals, a hoodie, extra pair of socks, but no jacket, and I would go out in the mountains because we were outside, right? And they had mountains around, but of course we couldn't go in the mountains, but we could see them. So I would go out and I pulled myself into the pull-up bar, and I'm like, oh my God, I can do a pull-up. So I pulled up 1, I put up 2, then eventually I hit 10. Peace, everybody. Eventually, I did 10 pull-ups, and now I'm at 100 pull-ups. I couldn't believe it, because before, I had never knew that I can even do one. I'm doing 100 pull-ups. So I began to go outside, doing my pull-ups, push-ups, and my dips, in -6, -7. It probably was worse than that, right? I did that all during the winter time. I did burpees. I did maybe 100 burpees. I began to work on my body. Every day in prison, I wanted to work on every aspect of myself. Everything. My mind, body, and my spirit. Peace, my sister. I wanted to work on my mind, my body, and my spirit. I wrote a book about myself. I wrote every sermon that I did, I wrote that book. Every sermon that I did in prison on sciences, all kinds of sciences. I had neuroscientists in the prison. So I used to pay the neuroscientists, the doctors, to teach me what they knew. So I would tell them what I knew, and so let me give you the story. The doctors lost all their money. So they couldn't get groceries. So I would buy their groceries. In return, I would have to tell them what I knew about the human brain and neuroscience and go through my books, and they would have to correct me and help me. So I would pay them to do that. I spent my time doing that. This is every single day. Every day was so busy for me. I'm learning about the mind. I'm I'm fixing my body. I didn't work in the prison at all. The prison makes you work, but I paid other people who didn't have any money to do my job for me because I did not go to prison to work for prison. I went to prison to work on myself. And so that's what I did for most of the time. From working out to working on my mind to writing 3 books. Again, every sermon that I gave, the whole time I was there on various sciences are all written down, documented, and with Zarina ready to be published this year. I wrote another book on myself. That book is with Zarina to be published this year. I wrote a book a little before prison, but I fixed it up. I utilized my time, right, to get my books and things together. That book is also with Zarina, and I wish I'm at my job right now. If I was home, I would show you stacks of papers. My fingers used to hurt so much cramp. But again, I was going to war with myself, and I refused to let that time pass with me giving of myself to them and not giving myself to developing, to becoming a better version of me, the version that God created me to be, right? So, those are some things that I did inside of the prison. Eventually, the prison, the counselors, they would come to me, right? At the end of my time, they would actually not come to me. They would come to inmates that were getting out who did 20, 30 years. They would say, go talk to Khalil before you leave. That's how much they respected me. Because I really never talked to them unless I had to talk to them. Like maybe I'm getting my paperwork to come home, or, they take me through the system. When I had to talk to them, I talked to them. Other than that, we have no conversation. But they watched me so much that when inmates who were going home that were seriously institutionalized, they would send them to me. We would have such a beautiful circle inside of that prison. A huge circle full of scientists, pharmacists, you name it, right? Doctors, multiple doctors. And we would have meditation classes, we would have Friday sessions. I wrote out a whole curriculum and, would go through it with them. The guys would actually be crying in prison because I helped them look inside of themselves to fix issues that has caused them to be in a cycle of trouble. So that was an amazing journey for me. And even when it was time for me to come home from prison, and I was ready to come home, like I was ready to come home day one. But I did realize that God has me here on a mission. I met another guy in prison before I was going to the gym to work out. And I was laying down on my bunk thinking about one of you. And he couldn't read. So he told me that he's been taking care of a child for the child's whole life, and he wanted me to read the paperwork to him. So I told him after I come back from the gym, I'll read it to him. And I looked at the paper, the child that he was thinking about, and he didn't know me, was the same child that I was laying on my bunk thinking about when I went into a crack house in Detroit on Dexter to get her mama out that was being abducted. So in prison, your mind just go all over everywhere. So I was just thinking of all the crazy things that I did in my life. I was laying on my bunk like, I can't believe I did that. I walked into a building on Dexter, and a woman, they was abusing her, and I had to go in and get her out and walk her out of that building, and then coach her after she got out of that situation and help her change her life. I'm laying there thinking about her, and he's one of the guys that was in the building that got her pregnant, but they had a good relationship. And they had a good relationship because he was a bad guy, but not one of the ones that abused her. Her daughter outside wanted to meet her dad. I'm right with him, I said, bro, you're not going to believe this. I know those people. I can call them. And, people do have illegal phones in prison, right? They have illegal phones everywhere. So eventually, I was able to contact the mother on the outside and put the daughter with her father. So I was like, okay, God, I see you have me on a mission, right? So it made it so easy for me when I came out of prison because I did the work inside of the prison. I'm talking about on an extreme level. Extreme. Where people would say, bro, take it easy. It's no taking it easy. I'm not here on vacation. I'm not here to be on a cell phone. I'm not here to be watching TV all day. I'm going to work out my body, work out my spirit, and work out my mind. And no matter where you're at in life, that is the way that you actually have to take. If you want to succeed in life, you have to go hard on yourself. You can't say, because I'm in a bad relationship or I'm in a situation in my life that is not good, that I'm just going to subjugate myself to this situation. No. No matter if you have a bad relationship, no matter if you don't have a job, no matter if you don't have a place to stay, no matter if you're being oppressed, no matter if you're in prison, you still must work hard on yourself because those situations could go however you want them to go. But the reality, the intentions of those situations is to bring you up, is to uplift you, is to bring you into the self that God made you to be. And I understood that. I understood that not just in prison, but throughout my entire life. Right? Not my entire life. I just lied on camera. There became a time in my life where I realized that our trials were not here to break us, but they were here to make us becoming what God had originally made us to be. So I look at trials a little bit differently. So much so that when I went out of prison, when I left prison, it was crazy. The guards are almost saluting me like, job well done. One time, just before they released me from prison, they put me in solitary confinement for 28 days. And for 28 days, for no reason. Of course, I wrote letters on the prison. I wrote letters on them. I made massive changes in the prison. I made it easier for the prisoners that I left inside of prison. I helped prisoners get out of prison, right, who had no hope. Maybe 4 to 5 of them who I visited some of them, and I communicated and checked on some of them. They hated me inside of that prison. So they put me in solitary confinement. A lot of people on the outside, they were so worried because they thought wrong. They thought what makes you hard is how you talk, right? When you talk a lot of garbage, that doesn't make you hard. Because hard people put me in prison, right? So it doesn't make you hard because you walk with your pants down or because you have a pistol. Or because you're some big, tough, bad guy. That doesn't make you hard because you have a loud mouth. No. What makes you hard is when you go hard on yourself in a good way to develop yourself, when you can control your anger, when you can look at a situation, right, and instead of letting it destroy you, you can build yourself and grow in that situation. So, that's a little bit about my mission I want to share with you. I hear my guys are out there, they're cutting all the machines on right now, and I'm not sure that you can hear me very well, but take situations in your life and don't allow them to break you, right? Utilize whatever you're in, bad marriage, low on funds. Utilize the opportunity, the time to become a better person. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Get in your beast mode, right? God you, for those out there maybe going through something, yes, I've been to prison, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I utilized those rough times, right, to bring out a diamond, to make a diamond, right? And that's how you have to see in life. And quickly, before I go, when I got out of prison, my house was stolen, frauded, gone. I had no house. And I had 10,000 stinky dollars. And I was crying because I was used to having so much more. But I didn't allow that to break me. I cried for a minute. Because a lot of people, a lot of things happened. People stole my house, stole my things from my house, just did me so wrong. I cried, and then I pulled up my pants, laced up my boots, and I went to war. And that's how you move. You have to go to war. You can't lay there and get kicked on, or lay there and stay broke, and lay there and stay broken. You have to get up and continue to move forward no matter what it is. So I did that, rebuilt my business, made it 1,000 times better than it was when I left. I went to jail with 1 book, came out with 4, right? I went to jail 170 pounds, came out 225. More healthy, more intelligent, more strong, right? More spiritual, more wise, understanding the blessings that God placed upon me. So, no matter what prison you're in right now, listen to this. Listen to it over and over and over again, right? And know that whatever you're going through did not come to break you, but it actually came to make you. So, I tried my best to deliver you this message with all the noise in the background, and I hope somebody out there is inspired. God bless you. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments.